extraordinaire, the gemologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Geomologist Presents Happy Valentine's Day, if you
Happy
believe it.
Valentine's Day to you, Carl.
Oh, thank you. Happy Valentine's Day, Amy. Today we have a special movie review. It's not a
Yeah.
Western, but it is a war movie, and we're thinking about doing war movies later in the year. But today's movie is the famous and a really good movie. I've seen it a few times, Casablanca.
Did you know that the first time I saw this movie, I was 9 years old?
Wow. So maybe you should drive the discussion then, Amy, because
I have been,
Casablanca.
I have, and I've been in love with this movie. Haha, get it? Valentine's Day for 41 years. Hint to the
Wow,
viewers. Yeah,
that's crazy. So I won't say how if you people do math that you just gave away your age. I thought
I
that
know,
was
but I'm not
anyway.
really, I'm not really worried about it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but yeah. So maybe you should lead the discussion then. I usually take the reins for or I have been for our series, but since Casablanca is your favorite movie, yeah, I'll respond to you. You tell me about Casablanca. I have some cool things that I found out because it's pretty amazing to me. Like I think the main thing, and we'll discuss it, is how many quotes there are from Casablanca that are kind of referred to in other movies that you say all the time. It's great. I really enjoyed this movie. Some screen techniques that I enjoyed and I picked up. But go ahead, Amy. Tell us about Casablanca.
Well, here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Anyways, I had to get it out there, and you'll notice it's on my little screen thing there.
Yeah.
For any of those that are not used to Casablanca, it was a 1942 movie where Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart, is the owner of a nightclub in Casablanca, and he discovers his old flame, Ilsa, that played by the absolutely gorgeous Ingrid Bergman, is in town with her husband, Victor Laszlo, and I think Paul's last name is Heinrich.
Heinrich.
I totally apologize if I
Heinrich.
don't pronounce that right. And Laszlo is playing a famed rebel, and he's got the Germans hot on his trail, and he's broken out of a concentration camp, and he's gone all over the place, and he's arrived in Casablanca with the Germans hot on his trail. But Ilsa knows Rick can help them get out of the country with papers of travel.
Right. It's billed as a drama film, but it is kind of a war movie. It's actually filmed and set during World War II, and it focuses on this expat Rick, played by Humphrey Bogart, and Henri is a Czechoslovak resistance leader. He escaped from Vichy-controlled France to, well, it says unoccupied Morocco and the city of Casablanca, where he wants to continue to take the fight against Nazi Germany. So yeah, it's based on Everybody Comes to Rick's, which is an unproduced stage play by Murray Burnett and Joan Allison, and it is directed by Michael Curtiz.
Right, but the screenplay was actually written by Julius Epstein, Philip Epstein, and Howard Koch. I think
Wow,
Koch.
cool.
It was produced by Hal B. Wallace and directed by Michael Kurtz.
Mm-hmm.
Music by Max Steiner. It runs about 102 minutes, and it's from Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and actually, I read something really cool. Let's see. Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Here's a little tidbit too. Casablanca, definitely an A-list film. It's got Bogart and Bergman with established stars, first-rate writers. No one involved with its production expected to stand out that year, actually. And it was
No,
rushed
not
to
at all.
release. It was rushed to release, actually. It is, like I said, filmed during World War II. It was rushed to release to take advantage of the publicity from the Allied invasion of North Africa a few weeks earlier. And it
Oh, yeah.
actually opens up December 1941. So you might know from your history.
Yes, it coincides with the Allied invasion of North Africa and the capture of Casablanca.
Right? The release did, but the actual film is set in December of 1941, apparently or supposedly right before the Americans joined World War II, before the attack on Pearl Harbor. I'm assuming probably like early December 1941. I thought something really interesting too that I found in an article from the BBC on Casablanca is that here Warner Brothers, they took a big risk. they took a stand actually. It's
Mhm.
it's a paean to anti-isolationism, charting an American who makes money back on the refugee migration, because that happened through North Africa at the time. And then he actually says a couple times, Rick does, I stick my neck out for nobody, but then he turns into a self-sacrificing anti-Nazi freedom fighter, really. And they took a stand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Hollywood studio, Warner Brothers, took a stand and created a world populated by real refugees who escaped the war in Europe, actually. So there's like
Absolutely. If you want
75
to,
actors and
do you want me
actresses.
to go into all the fun facts I have for you?
Oh yeah, let's go for the fun facts.
Okay, number one, Everybody Comes to Rick's was the play that it's
Yeah.
originally based off of. Did you know that Warner Brothers paid $20,000 in 1940 to purchase that play? In today's money, that's $289,143. And the only other play they had paid that much for, they paid $8,000 for. I want to say that was Grapes of Wrath, but I'm probably wrong. Please comment.
Yeah.
But the writers did it because the play was written as a cautionary tale against fascism.
Yes, that's true. And nearly all of the 75 actors in the movie were immigrants, actually. So
Right.
immigrants
Many of the
fleeing the war
actors,
in Europe.
yeah, many of the actors themselves were victims of war. S.Z. Skull, who played the waiter Carl, was a Jewish Hungarian who fled Germany in 1939 and lost 3 of his sisters in a concentration camp.
Wow.
Helmut Dantry, who played the Bulgarian roulette player, spent time in a concentration camp and left Europe after being freed just in time to be in the movie.
That's pretty amazing.
Kurt Boyce, who played the pickpocket, and he's quite funny, was a German Jewish actor and refugee and came to the United States. Conroy Veidt, who played Major Heinrich Strasser.
Ironically, yeah.
Yes, was a German film star and refugee, and even though he fled the Nazis, he's always been cast as a Nazi in American films.
I know.
But here's the
dies,
kicker.
though.
Here's the kicker. So the director of the movie, Michael Curtiz, was a Hungarian Jewish immigrant who arrived in the United States in 1926, but his family members were not able to get here until they got out of a refugee camp from Nazi Europe shortly before the filming of the movie.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? How this movie came together. And actually, you know, a lot of people thought it would be a hill of beans, but it does have a solid plot, I thought, and very intelligent script writing. And it's funny that actually the writers of the screenplay kind of, while it was adapted from that play, they kind of wrote it as they went during the shooting of the movie, which I think is pretty amazing, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Now picture this, Carl. The opening credits, the film is going, the plane is flying.
Yep.
But it's set in Lisbon.
No?
Yeah,
Casablanca.
that's where the original play was set.
Oh, wow. Oh, the original play was set in Lisbon. Okay.
Absolutely. And did you know that Ingrid Bergman was almost 2 inches taller than Humphrey Bogart, and he had to stand on blocks or sit on cushions when they were in scenes together?
That's funny. So I guess in Marseille they would have taken a left to get to Lisbon.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was also shot
right
entirely in Burbank, California, with one exception.
With
one exception. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. You're going to tell me, though.
I am. The opening scene where we see the Nazi villain Heinrich Strasser flying past an airplane hangar is actually shot at Van Nuys Airport in Van Nuys, Los Angeles.
Yeah. Oh, Van Nuys. Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty interesting.
And did you know that in 1942, at the Summit of Conferences held in Casablanca, attended by Franklin D. Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill, they both came out and said that it was one of their favorite movies?
Wow.
2 months after its release.
So it is a patriotic war movie.
It is.
Maybe it did. I don't know. I don't want to say it's a piece of propaganda, but maybe like people seeing it it happened while we were already in the war, but maybe it convinced people to get more behind the war and the fight against.
Can I also boggle your mind? Do you know what line from the movie is so misquoted but never actually appears in the movie?
Oh, I was going to bring that up, but you're going to tell me anyway.
Well, go ahead and guess.
No, go ahead.
Play it again, Sam. I
was going to guess it was play it again, Sam. That's not what was said.
No, Ilsa actually says, play it once, Sam, or play it, Sam. And Rick says, play it or
Play it.
play it again, Sam, but never play it again and then Sam.
Right. It's play it, Sam. Play it as time goes by. That's what
Mm-hmm.
Ingrid Bergman says. And and Humphrey Bogart reprises that, and he says, I never want to hear that song again. Play it, just play it, or something like that. But
Oh,
anyway,
absolutely. What do you
it's
remember
good.
the song As the Time Goes By? As time goes by?
Yeah.
That was originally not meant to be in Casablanca,
Huh.
but because Ingrid Bergman had already filmed the scene, they left it in. And did you know that that song spent 21 weeks on Hit Parade, which was at the time their hot top 100?
Yeah, yeah.
21 weeks. Can you
Wow, that's really good.
imagine?
That's pretty amazing. So it definitely was well received. I didn't look at the numbers. Here we go. It cost $1 million to make, and it made like 6.9 million. So that's a really good return for back then, I think.
Absolutely.
So it quintupled its value, sextupled its value. So
One would state it's still gaining value. I mean, it's almost every movie theater is showing it for Valentine's Day,
oh, really?
which makes me pretty happy.
Uh-oh. Is this a hint on what we're doing for Valentine's Day?
Oh, don't worry, I own the movie. We can
Yeah,
watch
we
it
own the
every
movie.
day.
We can watch it whenever. Yeah. Get our own popcorn, get up when we need to. Yep, totally.
Absolutely. But I believe it was actually up for 11 Academy Awards. It won 3.
Yeah, it was nominated for 8, won 3. There are other awards it was nominated for, but it definitely won Best Picture.
Is nominated and then won. Yes.
Best Picture, Best Director for Curtiz, and the
Mhm.
Epsteins and Coach were honored for Best Adapted Screenplay. So yeah, it was great. It was great. Yeah, so lead characters, amazing lead characters, memorable lines, pervasive theme songs. So it's really an iconic movie, and it's another one that is in 1989. The Library of Congress selected it as one of the films for preservation in the National Film Registry. And I think we already seen one other Bogart film, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, that was done that way, as was High Noon and A Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So we're hitting all of these check boxes. So
If our watchers are wanting to watch it for Valentine's Day, if you have a subscription to Max, you can watch it on there.
yeah, I didn't see if it was. I mean, you guys can check, because I know Treasure of Sierra Madre was kind of available through the Library of Congress for free, so you can see if Casablanca is. I don't know. I really don't know.
Occasionally it is, but because there's still royalties that go, sometimes it's not. I know you can rent it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Vudu, all the rest of them, but why not just buy it? Once you watch it once, you've got to keep watching it
Yeah,
for those
I feel like
iconic movie quotes that you're going to go over.
I know we've been married some time, and we've seen it like 3 times during our marriage, but maybe it should become a tradition. It was actually, I don't know, I guess I was in the mood, but it was actually a really good movie when we watched it the other day. Really good. So
I absolutely love it. So I've teased about those movie quotes. Did you want to do them?
yeah, you want to talk movie quotes first, or you want to talk cast? Let's talk cast first.
You want to talk cast first? Okay, then we've got to start with my absolute favorite actor of all time for men, which is Humphrey Bogart.
Definitely, as Rick Blaine.
Ingrid Bergman is my second favorite female actress, and she plays Ilse Lund.
Yep.
We already talked about Paul.
Paul Henri plays Victor Laszlo, yes.
Claude Rains plays Captain Louis Renaud.
One of my favorite. I think he's my favorite supporting actor in this movie.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine this movie without any of these characters.
Right.
And Conrad Voigt was Major Heinrich Strausser. We already
really
talked
good
about.
bad guy. Really good bad guy, actually.
And apparently he's was a really great guy.
Yeah. And actually, he was a refugee German actor. He fled the Nazis with his Jewish wife. So, and again, ironically, he played Nazis in American films. He was actually the highest paid member of the cast. And unfortunately, he died shortly after the film's release. So
you never know.
Yeah.
But then there's Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre, yeah, he has Ugarte. I love that's also, that's an iconic voice. You see that voice. Well, I used to watch. I mean, I'm sure we all watch Looney Tunes, actually owned by Warner Brothers. Interestingly, we watch Looney Tunes a lot, and they would always have some character in the cartoon who talked like Peter Lorre does, as Signore Ugarte in this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just the actors go on and on and
Right.
on. But I mean, I just can't imagine the film with any other actor.
Right, right. I mean, and the other second build actor was Sidney Greenstreet, who played Signor Ferrari. We have, like you mentioned, Kurt Boyce, Leon Kinski, who is a Russian bartender, Sasha, the Russian bartender. He actually was the author of the Round Up the Usual Suspects, The Making of Casablanca, and he was in the cast because he was actually Bogart's drinking buddy, which is kind of funny. Madeline LeBeau was Yvonne, his Rick's former girlfriend. Joy Page was the young Bulgarian refugee. John Quaylen was Laszlo's resistance contact. Carl the waiter, you mentioned already, S.K. Sakal. And then very notably, kind of the singer and the musician behind the scenes, or in a lot of the scenes, was Dooley Wilson as Sam. So one of the few Americans born members cast in the movie, actually. And yeah, he was actually a drummer, and he had to fake playing the piano, but he did a great job faking playing the piano.
Oh, he did. And I mean, man, I can't imagine that movie without him in it.
Right.
And I mean, I'll just say it that I think they did an incredible job of picking the cast. I mean, there's not one actor or actress, even the little, I guess you could say, extras they had.
Yes. Well, a lot of, like we said, there were 75 of them were actual immigrants, actors probably fleeing Europe from the war.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I just brings tears to my eyes, and it makes you really, really want to just reach out and be like, just get on the plane.
Yeah, just get on the plane. Unfortunately, that's not part of the quotes. So I guess
No,
we're
it's
talking
not.
quotes. Yeah, we talked about, there's some amazing quotes in this movie. We haven't gotten to the plot yet. I want to say, as well as quotes, though, this technique, or kind of a device that they use where you follow the travel on the map, that you definitely was made famous, and it seems like it's an homage to Casablanca in Raiders of the Lost Ark, is where they have the little dots of the travel from Paris to Marseille, then across the Mediterranean to Oman, and then from Oman by train to Casablanca. I think that's pretty amazing. Like, I was like, whoa, I didn't remember that when I saw it. Like, holy shnikes, Batman, that is what they do in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And definitely Spielberg got that. He was influenced. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark clearly is a Saturday morning kind of action film type of movie, and Steven Spielberg got a lot of inspiration from the movies that he probably saw while he was a kid, a Saturday morning, which would include like Casablanca among them. So I thought that was a pretty cool. And I was like, man, I guess Raiders of the Lost Ark is really trying to get that pre-war, world during the war kind of World War II vibe, that is apparent in that movie, and Raiders of the Lost Ark specifically. So we talked about play it, Sam, play as time goes by, and that's when Ingrid Bergman, who recognizes Sam, and I love that sort of construct again, that you're like, oh, she knows Sam. I mean, when she walks in the bar and Rick sees her, he recognizes her, but then Sam is the first person that Ilsa, Ingrid Bergman's character, interacts with, and she says, play it, Sam, play as time goes by. And then, of course, when she walks in, it's another great quote. Can I say it, or do you want to say it, Amy?
You go ahead.
All right. Of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, she walks into mine. And actually, we were playing a game this morning, and as soon as I mentioned Casablanca, one of the players like, oh, of all the gin joints in the world and all the towns, she walks into all the world, she walks into mine. So it's great. So it's definitely quoted. And this person is not, he's a lot younger than us, so I guess he appreciates these old films. So it's really great. So
I think his parents make him watch it, and if he's watching the video, he knows who he is.
yeah. So that's an amazing quote, and I think it's referenced again in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen, says, to Indy, or shouts out to Indy, you know, Indiana Jones, I always knew you'd come walking back through my door, which it really is a kind of a paraphrase or homage to what Rick says when Ingrid comes in.
Oh, yes. But I mean, you're watching it, and if you've never seen Casablanca, you start watching it, and it's like quote after quote after quote. You're like, really? But I will say one of my favorite, well, I mean, I love the whole film, but one of my favorite little stick it to you type parts
Yes.
is when Rick and the captain are coming down the steps, and they're going to have the Nazis come in and take a table for this big arrest. And he's saying, "Oh, you should give him a table by the pretty women." And he's like, "I didn't think I had to give it to him. He's a German, he'll take it."
Yeah, that was a quote by actually SK Sakal, or SZ Sakal. That's Carl the waiter. So
Absolutely.
I think I was named after him, actually. No, I don't know.
No, you spell yours with a K.
He spells his with a K.
Maybe. But
German Austrian.
something like that.
Yep.
And then the other part I like is when Victor Laszlo goes over and the Germans were on the piano
Oh, that
singing
was amazing.
German
That was an
tunes,
amazing scene.
and he goes over to the band and starts having them play La Marseillaise.
La Marseillaise, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Strasser and his group of German officers are singing Die Walk am Rhein, so I walk on the Rhine, or something like that. I walk the Rhine, and which is a German patriotic song. And Laszlo orders a house band to play La Marseillaise, and Rick nods, because Rick says, I don't stick my neck out for anybody, but subtly he sticks out his neck out for people. He is, as Captain Renault says, Rick, you are a sentimentalist. He says that a few times.
Absolutely. I think another funny part is when at the end of the movie, they're at the hangar. He's having him fill out the letters of transit.
Yep.
And he's showing him his gun. And he's like, "Don't make me shoot you in the heart." And he says, "Oh, that's the least vulnerable thing I have."
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah. And those are really great quotes, but they aren't like the main quotes. Because
No,
then,
they're not.
here's looking at you, kid, which is, he says at the end, and then during the Paris flashback. So I guess we were wrong. This is a 42 film. We were wrong about the use of flashback. This the Man from Liberty Valance being the first. Clearly here in Casablanca, they have a flashback going to Paris as a sort of montage where Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart's character have their liaison, with Ingrid Bergman thinking that her husband in a concentration camp is dead, right? So
Right. But Humphrey Bogart doesn't know that she's married at this point in time.
Right.
But getting back to what you were talking about with the flashback, although they're using flashbacks, I think The Man That Shot Liberty Valance, the difference is the movie is set as a flashback coming forward. This, they're filling in the plot with flashbacks. So I think you're still right about that. I don't know. Comment down below, listeners. Let us know.
Yep. So then he says he's looking at you, kid. He says that in the Paris flashback, and then at the end, and then when Ingrid says, "No, I want to stay," and she says, "No, you need to go." So he does kind of give her up in a way, but he really knows that she is in love with her husband, with Victor Laszlo, and wants to, and not just because of who Victor Laszlo is, not that Rick is just a chump, but because Victor Laszlo, and their dream together is more important than Rick's own happiness. I think that's, to me, a theme. And he says, "We'll always have Paris," which is an amazing line as well.
Oh, absolutely. Makes you cry, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it almost brings tears to your eyes if I were a sentimentalist, but I probably am. So that's pretty
Probably
cool.
Rick is.
Right. And then there at the end, there's another quotable quote, which is when and Captain Rolt says this before, when they're going after the people in the beginning who stole the courier papers anyway. He says, round up the usual suspects. He actually says, Strasser is dead. Round up the usual suspects, which is a great line that you see. I mean, you see it in many, many films, many cop dramas, many type of films today. I feel like it was used in The Usual Suspects, round up the usual suspects, and then they parade them all there to get their pictures taken as they're booked. So that's pretty cool. That's definitely a quotable quote. Yes, it is behind the title. actually, I'm reading here in my little cheat notes that this line is proved to be the inspiration behind the title of that Bryan Singer film, The Usual Suspects. So that's pretty cool. And then finally, do you want to say the other one that is in every single, that Bugs Bunny says all the time in every single Warner Brothers movie when he makes a new ally?
I will let you do it.
All right. It says Louis. Well, because so basically Renault helps Bogart to help Ilsa Bergman and Henri Laszlo get away. So they escape, the good guys win. They kill the Nazi at the end. Spoiler. And then he says, Louis, because they both have to flee now. They're like, oh, we're done. We have to flee. There's no way we can stay here with all the heat that's gonna come down. And so Louis Renault, who has been to me like a sort of a passively resisting the Germans the whole time, he says, no, we gotta go. And then Bogart says, Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so
it's a great way to end the film. But I have one more little trivia for you.
Okay.
Did you know that the Epstein brothers never actually came up with a reason why Rick could not return to America?
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, you can make up like whatever story. Like even Renault speculates, oh, did you murder someone?
Right, but eventually Julius Epstein said that he and his brother tried very hard to come up with a reason why Rick couldn't return to America, but nothing seemed right, and they finally decided never to give a reason.
Right, but Rick is kind of like a hero, right? I mean, in a way, he fought much like well, I don't know if Hemingway fought. I guess he did fight for the loyalists in Spain, but Rick Blaine, the character that Humphrey Bogart plays, fought against the fascists for the loyalists in Spain, and then he also helped against he also helped run guns to Ethiopia against the Italians prior to World War II. So he's an adventurer type as well. So and I think that's great. That's a great little piece of trivia to me that we don't know what he did, but of course Renault speculates. Did you sleep with the senator's daughter? Did you kill somebody? Kind of trying to get it out of him, because Rick is that tough man who's like, keeps things close to his vest. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's funny.
So
I have
do we want to do
other funny little trivia for you.
Great. You're running the show.
I'm trying to. So in the 1980s, the script from Casablanca, they changed a few things and sent it out to several major studios and production companies under the name Everybody Comes to Rick's, and asked if anyone wanted to pick up the movie to redo it. And some recognized it, some didn't, but most of them said, there's not enough sex to make a decent movie, and there's too much dialogue, and it's too dated, so not worth our time, won't be a hit.
Which is a crazy talk. I think it would actually do well today. There's implied sexual situations or implied adult themes. That's what they always say. I think it's rated PG anyway, right?
I think so. I mean, they were censored so
It's
much making the
yeah.
movie
Yeah.
that the only real bad word they used was hell. And I think they were told they could only use it a max of like 8 times in the entire film.
Right. Yeah. So, but there is implied relations. I mean, it's an adulterous relationship, really. So it's not that dated. Now, I disagree with the dialogue. There's a lot of movies nowadays that, like Usual Suspects, they have to pay attention to what the hell they're saying. And a lot of other movies where you got to do that. I mean, I guess if they had tried to bill it as an action movie, it wouldn't quite work. It's more of like a espionage film noir, romantic war movie, right? So there you go. But I mean, the dialogue is very poignant, right? I think a lot of things are very poignant.
If you see the original, you sit there and like, why would you want to remake it? Now, granted, it was completely done in California. The ones that had done it, the ones that wrote it and everything had never been to Casablanca for obvious reasons. There's a little bit of a war going on. But I mean, don't you, when that comes up, you're like, oh, that's got to be what it looks like. Absolutely not. It's a lot of stones and dirt and dust, and it's not like that, but it pictures things in your mind that makes you, oh, I really want to go to Casablanca someday.
Well, it's supposed to be a beautiful city in Morocco anyway. It's supposed to be very nice. So
I'm sure it's absolutely gorgeous. but it's not like that.
Right. But they don't really, I mean, they show like a busy market street, kind of like they do Cairo in Raiders of the Lost Ark, another influence, right? Busy, crowded, you know,
But
Middle
they did it.
Eastern, Arab themed, North African street.
Oh, I think they
But
did a great job of showing how people were oppressed during the war, though.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
They
Yeah.
couldn't travel. They waited months, weeks, days, years for their transport papers, and they had
Hmm.
to stay in non-occupied areas, and family members would go and family members would stay, and just the toils of war. So I think this movie is so much more than just about Rick and Elsa.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's the backdrop of the war adds so much to the movie, right? I mean, even from the beginning, we don't even meet Rick for the first 5 to 8 minutes of the movie, because they talk about, they have the Germans come in. You meet Renault. They're chasing. You see the stuff like how the refugees get there. They're chasing some um, French resistance people through the streets, and they gun one down. So that's kind of how it opens. And then it gets to Rick's, right? It gets to Rick's Cafe Americain.
Absolutely. And if as you watch the movie, you'll see when they're showing people that they feel are doing good things, there's a light on their face. When they're talking about doing something that they don't think is good, they use only shadows on the face, getting back to the shadows and light and darkness, and the use of music and just foreshadowing in a literal sense. And you
Yeah,
see
pretty much.
the mist and the clouds, and then
Right.
light and airy when they're in Paris, and then you hear the sirens go off and they start telling them how they're going to react when the Nazis walk in, and you just see this whole dismal look come over. I just It's amazing. I
Yeah,
think
and like Ingrid Bergman's face is always like lit up with that soft light. I think in every scene except for when they're talking to Ferrari. I think it's because that's during the day, but when her face is always like has that soft light or that aura around it, right? Almost
Mhm.
angelic, right? Which is interesting.
So
Yeah. So,
here's my question for you.
okay.
What system would you game Casablanca with?
Oh, I thought we'd get that to that at the end, but we don't. You don't want to talk plot then. We don't need to talk plot, I don't think. Then,
We
um,
already did. I mean,
well, I guess we've implied it. I guess the
we've
gist of it, if
implied
you've
it.
never seen Casablanca, I guess we should give someone. So the whole thing revolves around Laszlo and and
Ilsa.
Ilsa come into town, and they want to get away to Lisbon and then on to to the United States, right? As refugees. Laszlo is an escaped prisoner from the concentration camp. Um, and it kind of builds slowly that the Germans know he's here, they know what he's about, they're going to capture him, and eventually they want to kill him, right? They imply that they want to kill him, but another player in this area, so refuge papers to get out are hard to come by and expensive,
Mhm.
and Rick and Cafe Americain is like a place where you can make these deals, right? It's got gambling, it's got singing, it's got drinking, all that kind of stuff. So it's a cafe, it's like a bar, gin joint. There you go. So anyway, so it does so you kind of set the scene with the killing of the French resistance people that Renault goes around, and then um this petty crook, Ugarte, Senor Ugarte, who's played by Peter Lorre, he boasts to Rick about the letters of transit that he received, and it's implied that he either arranged or took part in the murdering of these two German carriers to get them. And then the bearers would allow people to travel freely around German-occupied Europe and neutral Portugal, which is the important thing. So, and then Ugarte wants to sell them, but then I guess he feels that he's being chased or people know what's going on, so he asks Rick to hold him. They round up Ugarte, and he's killed off camera. He's killed in jail off camera. And then at that point, Ilsa comes in, right? The reason for Rick's cynical nature. I don't get involved. I don't stick my neck out for nobody, right?
He also doesn't sit down and have drinks with anybody.
Right. He doesn't do that at
But
all. As much as Renault wants him to, Renault calls him a sentimentalist, et cetera, et cetera.
mm,
What I like is that there's a lot of I know what you know, but I'm not gonna call you out directly. right? I love that kind of dialogue. Like, I know what you're hiding, but I'm not going to call you out directly. And I don't know exactly that you do, but I'm pretty sure that you do. I like that kind of, intrigue.
They're like spies without being spies.
Oh yeah, yeah, this is great. And then they play as time goes by. Rick is furious, and he's stunned to see Ilsa, and then she's accompanied by Laszlo, who he does not know yet that it's her husband, right? They just know that Laszlo is an important fugitive from the Czechoslovak resistance. So
Right. He was told not to let him get out.
yeah. And then Rick, seeing this, he kind of drinks a whole bottle of something, and you get the Paris flashback where he knows Ilsa, and that they were together, and then when the Germans stormed or captured Paris, right as the Germans are capturing Paris, they flee, the plan is to flee, and they're on the last train out of Paris, and he and Sam are like looking for Ilsa, and she doesn't show up. And then there's a great scene where he's holding the letter that Sam found by her from the hotel, because Sam had to go check on her, and it's like, say, I'm sorry, don't ask me why, we probably will never see each other again. And then it kind of melts away in the rain, which I think is, or
well, the ink runs off just as if it was mascara on a woman's eyes running down.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's actually very interesting simile that you're using.
Because I've seen the movie way too many times.
So, yeah, so then it's very interesting. And of course that this couple needs the letters to get out, right? And then German Major Strasser arrives in Casablanca to try to prevent that. And then they introduce Signor Ferrari, who wants to buy the bar, but he's also an underworld figure in the sort of refugee trade. And he's Rick's friendly business rival. Like I said, he wants to buy Rick's cafe.
But he's actually a really good guy in the end.
Yeah, it turns out to be a really good guy. So then we have that great scene that you described in the bar, where there's this, they drop the French here in unoccupied, and that's what Renault says all the time: unoccupied France.
Absolutely.
Even though it's Vichy controlled, it's unoccupied, right?
It's unoccupied. But I mean, the best part about that scene is I was reading what different people said about it, and all the extras, all the tears and the singing are the actual people.
Oh, it's genuine, right? Wow,
it's genuine, and you
amazing.
feel it. You almost want, I mean, I don't know the song well enough, but as many times I've watched it, I can mouth the words, but I still don't know what they're saying. But I mean, it does bring tears to your eyes and makes you feel for them.
Right. And of course, because of that, the Germans tell Renault to close down the bar or the club, on this flimsy pretext. So,
but that's a funny scene, because he's closing down the bar, and then out of the casino, the guy's like, here's your winnings.
Yeah, that's pretty
He's
funny.
like, gambling. I'm surprised there's gambling going on here.
Yeah. And there's also a really neat scene there where he helps a refugee couple by helping them, win some money so they can get out of town. I thought that was pretty. There's some nuance there as well. You should watch the movie. I recommend to detect and see all the nuance within that interaction. But it's pretty cool. So later, after that scene in the bar, Ilsa confronts. It goes pretty fast. I mean, like, it isn't 102 minutes, so that it goes pretty fast, the movie. Why there's a lot of, I don't think there's a lot of superfluous dialogue. The dialogue sets up a lot of stuff. There's a scene when we first get to Rick's, in fact, when we first introduce Rick's Cafe Americain, where all these people are talking about their little plots and their little secrets, which I think is pretty neat. Yeah. So then Ilsa confronts Rick in the cafe, right? And he refuses to give her the letters because he still, wants her. She threatens him with a gun, but then confesses that she still loves him, and then she tells him why she left Paris, right? She thought her husband was killed, and she learned that he was not, and hiding in Paris.
But what's interesting is she's holding the gun at him, and Humphrey Bogart walks all the way up to the gun and says, "I'll make it easier for you," knowing full well this is an empty threat.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that although she says she loves him, she really loves her husband.
Right. She's just using all her guile and wiles so that she can get those letters so they can get out of town. Well, maybe, I don't know. It's never really explained. She never flat out says that that's from Bogart. It's Bogart's interpretation, or Rick's interpretation in the final scene. Right? So
Well, he
anyway,
says that she
maybe.
tried everything, but he
Right.
couldn't. He's like, just wanted her husband and her to be gone.
Yeah, at least in Rick's interpretation of the events that happened, whether they did or not, that's what he tells Laszlo to
To get on
to
the plane.
get on the plane. Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty cool, I think. Oh, the other thing too is that that not that kind of scene, you've seen that a lot too, where the former love interest is confronted with a gun, and then he steps up and says, I'll make it easy for you, and steps closer so that you can shoot him in the heart, put him out of his misery, right? So that's a very common sort of scene that we see here in Casablanca and is used in other movies. So yeah, so when
Not bad for a movie that was never supposed to be a hit.
Mhm. Oh, there is somewhere along this, there is a, earlier on, before the day before the big confrontation between the Germans and the French singing, there is this, Rick does, because they're trying to get out of there, so they're looking for these papers. They talk to Ferrari. He tells them that Rick probably has them, but then Rick says, "Yeah, they're probably going through my bar, ransacking it, so that they can find him, but they don't, because he hit him in the piano, right? Spoiler. So yeah. So anyway, uh, the police try to arrest Laszlo on a trumped up charge. Rick persuades them to release him because they come to the bar to go away.
They can get him on a better charge.
Yeah. And then Rick explains that he and Ilsa are going to use the letters to leave for America. So when Renault tries to arrest Laszlo, Rick forces him at gunpoint to assist in the escape. And I would say Renault kind of reluctant, he doesn't put up a fight. Right. So that's why
I think Renault wanted to see this go forward. He wanted to see Laszlo continue in his rebel ways and fight the Nazis. I mean, I think everybody across the board was part of their circumstances.
Right. Although, I mean, it is curious. I mean, I don't know if Renault is setting Strasser up then with sort of this interpretation, but he does tip off Renault, because he does call him and say, "Oh, let these people, don't hinder us as we go towards the airport."
Well, I think he does that for the simple reason that if he doesn't alert them, he's dead on arrival, I guess you could say. He's trying to save face, at the circumstances of what he was having to do, and he left anyways. Or maybe his intention was to always take him out.
Yeah, maybe it was setting up Strasser, right? Because it's too late for Strasser to round up all the guards, and he rushes out there alone. But I love Rick's line too, when the last moment he makes Ilsa board the plane to Lisbon with Laszlo, telling her that she would regret if she stayed. He says, "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life." And then she says, "But I love you, Rick." And then he says, "Well, we'll always have Paris," right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. And then as they board the plane is taxiing on the runway. Strasser arrives, and there's a confrontation between Rick and Major Strasser, and Strasser draws a gun, but Rick is too quick on the draw and shoots him dead. And then when the police arrive, Renault says, orders them to round up the usual suspects.
Because he's been shot.
And this, he actually says, they actually tell you where they're going, because Renault says that he and Rick should join the Free French in Brazzaville. And then as they walk away, Rick says, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Credits. Right, credits roll.
Close scene.
Well, that's a quick summary of the plot. Go see the movie. Now we're going to talk about games, I guess.
I would think so.
Yeah. So go ahead, Amy. You first. You brought it up, so you talk about games first.
I think just about anything would work with it.
Yeah, some World War II games that come to mind since we're doing this, I think, are like Achtung Cthulhu.
Or the new Cohorts Cthulhu.
Well, Cohorts Cthulhu takes place in Rome, but Achtung Cthulhu is like sort of the World War II version of that same sort of verse. But definitely, Achtung Cthulhu could work.
Even your Delta Green, maybe.
Or even straight up Cthulhu. There's like World War II Cthulhu that was put out in 6th edition. So
Mhm.
Delta Green, I guess Delta Green would work, but yeah, well, it is. Well,
It's
Delta
pretty
Green is sort of,
deadly.
yeah, Delta Green is 6th edition Call of Cthulhu. All right, so
I mean, I guess in a way, Savage Worlds could work
yeah, if you want a more
because
pulpy,
if you fail your batting of your eyes at Rick, you could just keep throwing bennies out there.
yep, yep, that's kind of funny. So I think what's cool is actually, so speaking of Call of Cthulhu, so there is this new product that's coming out by the Sasson Files Publishing that takes place actually in Morocco. It's called The Blessed and the Blasphemous. It's a Call of Cthulhu 7th edition product that's coming out. They did the Kickstarter, and I think it might even be shipping. At least it's been printed and it might be shipping, which is kind of cool. But
Sounds like we're gonna have to do that
yeah,
for the channel.
yeah, we might have to well, I think we'll definitely want to play it. But I think there is actually one of the chapters is where you are part of a film crew making a movie, um, making a movie in Morocco. So sort of a homage to
Casablanca, except it wasn't
Casablanca.
filmed in Morocco.
Yeah. So it does take place, in of course the adventure takes place all throughout Morocco, but definitely Casablanca is yeah, they have something called Chloe's Cafe,
Mhm.
Lights, Camera, Action, the Sultan's movie, right? So the Dogs of War. So yeah, so it's pretty interesting that you could actually do this. So do you
We might have to put a link in the show notes for people to
right,
get a copy of that. So after they finish watching Casablanca,
right,
either the
right.
first time or the, 49th time,
Hmm.
then, they can play the game
Yeah,
on Valentine's Day with a box of chocolates and a glass of champagne or
right.
some gin, maybe more appropriately gin.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting that the Blessed and the Blasphemous, it definitely is going to have a homage uh, to Casablanca, the movie. Having filming it, well, not is not what happened in real Casablanca. Obviously, they didn't film it
Mm.
on location, but you know, it was kind of big. It was big, and movies were big during that time, right? So,
Oh, absolutely. But the more important question is, have I switched you to liking black and white films yet?
not really, but there's some that are good, and
I'm gonna keep trying.
Casablanca is among them,
Casablanca's my favorite.
right? Right. So,
I
well,
think our viewers should comment down below how many times they've seen Casablanca.
that'd be pretty cool if you did that. Is there? I think that's it. That's all we got, right? Go
Well, I
watch
don't
Casablanca if you
know.
haven't. I know we spoiled
Absolutely.
it, but it's been around for a while. Or actually, more than likely, you've probably seen Casablanca. Go see it again.
Absolutely.
And
Give
happy
it some
Valentine's
love.
Day.
I mean, it's well acted, well directed. The music is incredible. And if you don't have any ideas as to what to do for Valentine's Day, stream it off of Max.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Maybe we'll do it again.
Hmm. Here's looking at you, kid.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got.
That's it.
GM extraordinaire, the GMologist. Carl Rodriguez is the GMologist.